mind going over some reports that me and Paul Reese have been doing here. Yeah, he introduced me. I'm Aldo Leopold. And I'm taking you back here to October 20th of 1936, which I'm here now doing some finishing up of the reports. I'm a professor of wildlife management at the University of Wisconsin and was hired by Mr. Colman to come and assist because of my background to assist Paul Reese in wondering basically, I think, where his ferns went. That started all this. To do a browsing study, what the deer were eating, what the understory was holding, and stuff like that. If you don't know who Paul Reese is, anybody know who he is? Paul Reese, from 1912 to 1927, was the director of the Rockford Park Systems in Rockford. He went to Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, where he designed a couple of parks outside of Pittsburgh, which are beautiful parks from what I understand. I haven't been there. And came back to Rockford to work as an independent landscape architect, involved in Rockford in production of a golf course there, which I don't know where that's going, but some other projects. But he was hired by Howard Colman to be the superintendent of Howard's private preserve. When I say it's private preserve, this is about 600 acres that him and Harry Severson, an associate his at the Barbara Coleman Company in Rockford, they both bought this property in 1924. And Howard Coleman's decided he wants a private park. And so Paul Reese was brought in to do the work on this private park, and they're finding things that were being eaten by their deer population. A little background, Mr. Colman and Mr. Severson both love deer. Most of the general public loves deer. You know, they're kind of rare here. There wasn't much deer around here until almost 1900. There were some that they estimate escaped from the village of Kishwaukee, which is where the Kishwaukee meets Rockford or Rock River. That little village, there was a deer population that was all fenced in. And I think that's where a lot of them come from, or somebody lets them out in Oregon, whichever. But what we've been doing is taking the properties, we segmented them into five different sections so that we could study each section and see if it worked well. You're standing in section 2, and section 2 is my favorite because there's some very unique plants in this section that we've not found in the others. Native white pine, which is not really native to here. They're currently planting a lot of white pine in the Civilian Conservation Corps, but it's not the native this here. Canadian yews grow in this section, and shadbush, which is serviceberry, is unique to this section here also. Down in the dells, and when I'm done yakking here, you're welcome to walk down to Hall Creek down below here. The path goes on with it. What we've been finding, the deer counts were not done by myself. Harry Severson, Lloyd Strauss, W.T. Bochier, those guys are close farmers to this. They've been counting the deer population. And from them giving me that count, and Mr. Reese, we kind of decided that this acreage right now has got about 10 acres per deer. And in other parts of the country, that's a lot. That's almost overpopulation of the 600 acres. The deer need to eat, so they start to eat all the understudy that's around that. What we've found most disappearing in all of these regions is gray dogwood, white elm, white oak, red oak, and blackberries. Those are the 5 most common that are slowly disappearing. There are some plants that from Mr. Reese's studies before they hired me to come on, which seem to have also disappeared totally. Hog peanut, tick trefoil. Those are a couple that we're not seeing anymore on these properties that were here when Mr. Reese took over this idea, what he was doing with it. So my job is to make recommendations to what he can do to help. They don't want to get rid of the deer, all of them. They want to have that so that Mr. Colman can bring his workforce, his friends, his relatives, and everybody to come out and take a horseback ride on his acreage on some of these wider trails that you've seen before. So right now, the deer population is not overpopulated. There hasn't been a lot of studies that anybody could go on before what we're doing here. The only thing close enough that we're looking at what plants were being eaten was by the University of Michigan, and their range of deer was fenced in, so they really don't have a free range that's ranging over this whole area. But our general recommendations for him is we actually in those 5 plots, we have 2 plots of agriculture food for the deer to eat, where corn is left up into the fields, winter wheats, rye and wheat, winter grains like that, plants that they can lay and eat. And in the winter time, when Mr. Reese and Mr. Strauss and Butacourt have come out and studied these, they've seen them where they've laid and stayed in that area. In summer, they like to get out. Evidently, like blackberries a lot. It's funny because the raspberries don't get eaten, the plants, or the blackberries for. This is something that's a little strange that was happening with it. Our recommendation to them is that they increase that agricultural food, and is to add some food that deer would eat. Not just 2 plots that we have, but we've recommended going to 6 plots in various parts of the whole area to kind of let the deer be there and not browse through everything as much with it. To increase that, made a recommendation to use rapeseed. That's actually in the mustard family, and it's a plant that deer love. It can get a little out of control if you're not careful, being in the mustard family. But deer love that. It also has a byproduct. If they want to harvest it, the seeds are canola oil. It can be used for that. Wahoo bush, which is something that on my own property, 1.5 years ago, I bought a property outside of Baraboo, Wisconsin, on the bluffs of the Wisconsin River. And it was pretty much a wasteland when we bought it. And we've been doing plantings and stuff. And what we found out with this wahoo bush is that the deer love it and can be eaten. And that's the eastern wahoo. If any of you are going to run out and do that, it's commonly known around here as burning bush. But don't plant winged wahoo. That's an invasive, non-native type of plant if you want to rush out and have deer feed in your yard with it. That's one of the plants that we're recommending. Also to plant along the edges some native, or some not native, but soft maples is another addition which deer love to munch off of the tops of them and stuff like that. Those are kind of our 3 recommendations to feed the deer. We also have made a recommendation to him that we try to thin this herd out by 20 to 40 deer a year. And right now, there's about 20 a year that the 2 farmers are recording. They're actually finding car hits are the biggest thing on Montague Road and this new road over here called Meridian, I think, where they've got deer hits. Fences, find a lot of bucks tangled up in fences, carcasses that are left from that. Wild dogs. There have been wolves here. The wolf population seems to have been thinned out, so there's not as much natural coming in and attacking the deer and stuff with it. The state of Illinois, the Department of Conservation will actually move these deer if all the landowners like to. They move them to southern Illinois. They can have them down there. But they will come and move deer. And it's our recommendation now that he do about 40 a year if they can to remove from this area to keep that under control and still have that deer area for their own usage with it. So that's what we're doing here. This study is going to go on through next year. I will be back next fall, hopefully a little bit earlier. was delayed coming this year, and there's so many leaves here we can't really see what's been browsed as easily as we were before. And checking this browsing is a little bit tough. There is grazing on some of this part by cattle. Fortunately, cattle kind of shred the understory, so you can see what was cattle, where deer will just come up and eat the top part off, nice clean cut, and eat that. They don't eat the blackberry bushes though, just the leaves. I don't know why that is. A little tough on their tongue, I guess. But, well, that's what I have to tell you about. That's why I'm hanging around here.
Well, thank you, Aldo.
Anybody got any questions? Or...
AKA Rick Barton.